John Harvey Stahl was born in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, in the town of Pine Grove. He was born to mother Alma and father George. His mother worked in a dress factory in Pine Grove, and his father worked for a Bethlehem steel operation in Lebanon. He also had 5 siblings. 4 of them were female. His brother Richard served in the Marines. His sisters were Shirley, who was 2 years older than him, Carol, about 3 years younger, and then twin sisters that were 7 years younger, in a house with no running water or electricity. Stahl attended a one-room country schoolhouse for 8 years, taught by a single teacher. After graduating, he went to the local high school where he graduated from in 1956. He also played football in his senior year in high school. After he graduated, he worked for 6 months for Bethlehem Steel in Baltimore, Maryland, after graduating high school. He then enlisted into the Air Force on December 26 in 1956. At the time, enlisting in the military is practically a male requirement, and Stahl chose the Air Force because of the education that came with it. After enlisting in Baltimore, Stahl returned to Pine Grove prior to leaving for service, and was then bused up to the airport in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, where he experienced his first airplane ride in a Lockheed Constellation airplane, where it flew him to San Antonio, Texas, at Lackland Air Force Base to start his basic training. According to Stahl,
well, the hardest part was actually learning the subject, because at the end of each phase, in addition to a normal written test or so, if we were studying a particular piece of equipment, the instructor would put a malfunction in, and then they would time you. How long did it take you to troubleshoot the device, discover the failed part, and you didn't have to fix it, but you had to take and tell why it, what the problem was, and what it would take to fix it. So that was a lot of pressure, because if you weren't able to take your training and then apply it in real time to the equipment, and you failed, you didn't complete then you would be washed out and shipped off to something else that was less demanding.
Insert quote here. After completing his basic training, Stahl gained his first promotion of Airman Basic. He then received specialized training in fundamental electronics and radar systems in Biloxi, Mississippi at Keesler Air Force Base, and when he graduated from that, he was awarded his second promotion of Airman Second Class. After completing his training in electronics, Stahl went to work at a radar station in Waverly, Iowa during the years between Korea and Vietnam. However, his services were needed more in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, because there is an open position, and the fact that there is already an excess of people in Waverly. Stahl would end up spending the rest of his term in Bartlesville. At the time, the United States was blanketed with radar sites, but by this time, these radar sites were already being phased out, as technology advanced from attacks from manned aircraft to being attacked with ICBMs, so tracking aircraft was useless, leading to their shutting down. When Stahl left the military in 1962, a majority of these stations had already closed down. Stahl was one of the last people there that sighted in Bartlesville when the site closed down. Afterwards, he was shipped out to Nogales, Mexico to prepare a radar site there, to turn it over to the FAA as a civilian aircraft control center, his last act as a part of the military. Eventually, after leaving the military, John H. Stahl ended up working for a contractor managed by NASA from 1962 to 1973. During his time working for NASA, Stahl wound up working in both the states of Virginia and California, fishing at Wallops Island in Virginia, and in Barstow, California, Stahl began attending Barstow Junior College and wound up with a 4-year degree out of Riddle University in Riverside, California. He even worked with the original computer, the 642B, which supported the Apollo moon landings. While working at NASA, Stahl recalls that each department in NASA had its own czar, and while each was very egotistical, they were so in a way that made the program so successful. To this day, out of all the Gemini and Apollo missions, Stahl cannot recall any failures to this day. However, even after every mission, according to Stahl, when men actually managed on the moon,
you know, it wasn't even, it was just another day at the job.
Huh.
Because you have to understand that every mission that was performed prior to and lunar landing, we'd go on shifts, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, say 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the mission. By the time you performed the mission, it was just like another training day.
Huh.
Well, that's how it was successful. It's because you didn't wait till the day of the actual set down and then go in on the console and try to do your thing. You did it every day, many times, until it was kind of just almost by the time the day came when they actually put the men up there in a rocket and went to the moon. It was just it was so unlike any other day you spent prior to that you were just glad when it was over.
Wow.
after the end of the initial manned space flight, Stahl received several pieces of memorabilia from NASA, including several pictures of the moon landing itself and a special booklet containing a commemorative coin with medals struck from the moon, and had moved on to commercial satellite construction, building the first commercial stations, where he eventually finished his regular paycheck work in 1993 in Saudi Arabia. Afterwards, he went back to live back in Pine Grove, Pennsylvania for a while, where he then married and had 2 sons of his own. However, because of the history of his background and the people he worked with over the years, Stahl was called from an outfit that called someone who knew him, and asked him to come as a consultant on the 1994 World Cup, and then take passes at the Rose Bowl and Stanford University sites, and overseeing security construction, securing the stadiums with fencing and cameras, and wheeling it out to the games. Because of that, with the 1996 Olympics occurred in Atlanta, and during the year before, he built several similar facilities in the campus of Georgia Tech University, which became the place the athletes stayed during the Olympics. Stahl was in Atlanta for about a year afterwards. Stahl has done many things afterwards. He has met General Colin Powell, spoke to him personally in Colorado at NORAD. He has stood in the commanding officer's office at MacDill Air Force Base. He has also gone to the Aleutian chain of Alaska, where he went through a winter storm 70 degrees below zero, and saw herds of elk and caribou totaling into thousands, and built an Earth station for the New York Times in Carlsbad, New Jersey. He has built all of his own houses, as well as houses for other people, and after retiring and moving back to Pine Grove, he became the chairman of the Regional Super Authority, and built a new $12 million plan, and a number of other things. He also took over a bankrupt water company later, and built it back up before turning it over to the county 3 years later. After accomplishing all of this in his life, you really could say that John Harvey Stahl is truly a jack of all trades. Thank you for your service.